this is Bitcoin's performance year to date compared to all other major asset classes. So you can see Bitcoin has returned 63% starting from beginning of this year, which is fantastic, phenomenal. Then we have silver and gold. Gold has been doing great, but still at half the performance of Bitcoin. Congratulations to the gold bugs. They're making some money here. Then we have NASDAQ. It's very interesting that gold has been actually outperforming NASDAQ. That's kind of mind blowing. Then we have AI, S&P 22%, AI stocks 16%. Of course, this is combining everything. So if you look at an NVIDIA or a few other ones, probably this thing will change significantly. I'm not exactly sure if NVIDIA outperforms Bitcoin right now this year, but over time it has. So it's probably the only thing that might have outperformed it. But still, as a class, they aren't doing much better than the rest of the S&P. Dow Jones, real estate, bonds are of course horrible. Long bonds even worse. The long bond yield is going up. Valuation of those bonds are going down. So it's very bad time for bond holders and a wonderful time for Bitcoin holders. And I expect this chart to just be uh, following this. I mean, the market following the same pattern moving forward. We are in a period where we have extreme um, inflation, monetary inflation. Uh, there is significant debt that all the central banks, including the U.S. central bank, hold, and there is no way out of it. They are spending $1 trillion a year on interest expense, and their deficit is very high and increasing. There is no way out of this. When you spend more than what you bring, there is zero solutions that you have. Why? Because you cannot cut spending. Like Elon Musk wants to cut spending by $2 trillion. He can do some of it, but like as soon as it becomes meaningful, everyone is going to be objecting him, and he's going to get no support from anyone because this is like a tragedy of commons. Like when you created a system like this, every part, like every senator, every congressman, everyone has constituencies, and they just fight to create more spending that helps their constituency, and that's how they get votes, right? And if you look at the discussions of both parties, they're always like, I spent this much money to help the farmers. I spent this much money to help the poor. It's all about spending more money, right? So if you want to cut that spending, you're going to have extremely angry opposition from somewhere. Anything you touch, you're going to get significant opposition, and you don't get any consensus on reducing the cost. So there's always consensus on spending more. There's zero consensus on spending less. So this is not going to happen. What's the other solution? Inflation, monetary, printing more money. Uh, some people call this soft default on bonds, right? And that's exactly what's driving commodity prices higher. So I bet if you add commodities, this will also be very revealing. But the fact that gold is just ripping higher past all-time high, Bitcoin is almost at all-time high with $1,000 difference. This is all. This is gonna have. This is gonna continue with some volatility, of course, but this is going to be our lives and our pattern, the pattern of the market for the next 5 or 10 years. It will all be monetary expansion, and this will push stock market and everything else higher. But assets with the highest scarcity, with the lowest amount of supply elasticity, they will perform the best in this environment. And Bitcoin is just going to be that sponge that absorbs the maximum amount of liquidity that they have to inject into the system to move, right?
Yes, it's interesting. Like you said there, like gold, silver, and Bitcoin kind of leading the charge, percentage wise. And with silver, I mean, it's just silver. My understanding with silver, I'm not an expert on silver, but there's a lot of demand for silver these days. So it's might have, like, compared to gold, it's relatively scarce as well. It's not as scarce as Bitcoin, of course, and neither is gold, but they're all somewhat scarce, and they're all performing pretty well. So Yeah, and then the rest of the commodities. I mean, those commodities, it's hard to know. That's a bucket, so it could be anything. But those most likely not nearly as scarce commodities. So yeah, it's interesting to see kind of an overview because even if people feel like Bitcoin's been not really doing a whole lot, for a while, you can see it's still outperforming basically everything. And like you said, the only thing is maybe Nvidia that's outperformed Bitcoin on certain time frames, but that's most likely going to change by the end of next year. Most likely, Bitcoin will be the best asset to be in, even better than Nvidia. So we'll see, but that's kind of what I think.
Yeah. All right. So then the question for us is, by the way, the commodity thing I have here is kind of combining everything. I would say like I need to add oil as a separate thing here, and maybe a few other iron probably or copper would be important to add. But for now, yes, we are combining everything, and it's pretty low.